Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by the Family Forest Carbon Program, where we help family forest owners get paid to improve the health of their woods. Anti-pipeline groups push for 45Q elimination. Republican State Senator Joy Hahn of Hartford was elected on a landowner rights platform and helped shepherd the eminent domain ban through the State House. Summit's business model hinges on the company's intended collection of billions in 45Q tax credits for companies that sequester carbon, keeping it from contributing to climate change. Hahn and others on hand for Monday's press conference want to see Representative Johnson push for the elimination of that program, which has existed for decades and was beefed up through the former President Joe Biden's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We are calling for Representative Johnson to die on this hill, said Chase Jensen of Dakota Rural Action, who called the notion of 45Q credits surviving in a U.S. Capitol transfixed by talk of wasteful spending insane. Ed Fishbaugh, a board member of the Dakota Rural Action, called the 45Q program nothing but corporate welfare. Representative Johnson knows what's going on here in South Dakota, and he needs to step up. Now, Blakely, as Johnson's spokeswoman, pointed out that the reconciliation bill would alter the tax credit program by limiting access to companies that begin construction within 2 years of the bill's enactment. The bill also restricts access to credits by tax-paying companies that are specified foreign entities, like Chinese defense companies or tax-paying companies influenced by those entities. As far as the notion of eliminating 45Q, a statement from Johnson said he's still working with his colleagues to make the big, beautiful bill a more conservative piece of legislation. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
A little bit drier for your Thursday, but we still see plenty of cloud cover nearby. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Here's what's going on. Low pressure finally has moved far enough to the east into upstate New York to give us less precipitation threat. However, there are plenty of clouds still rotating around the backside of this low, and I think that's going to allow us to stay a little bit on the cool side today. Also putting into this a strong north flow that develops across the lakes and coming out of Canada. That's going to keep a lid on temperatures as well. But sunshine trying to peek through this afternoon or in spots today will help with temperatures. We are chilly through tomorrow as well, starting to see winds go more westerly for Saturday. That's where our bigger warm-up begins. I look for sunshine to be a big story all the way through Saturday. But as we get into Sunday, we've got a weather system that's coming from the Central Plains, central and western Corn Belt that tries to drift across west and southern parts of Ohio. So showers and thunderstorms in here from I-70 southward. I think we have to allow for anywhere from a quarter to maybe 1 inch. Strongest thunderstorm activity wants to stay farther west and south. So we'll have to watch and see whether that changes in the next few days. After that moisture is done, and to be clear, nothing is going on north in the state on Sunday. For Monday through next Saturday, we go back to sunny, warm, and dry. Excellent opportunity to get back in the fields if we still need to do that. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Let's check in now with the Ohio Soybean Council weekly update with your checkoff dollars at work. Here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
I'm joined today by Kate Schenk. She serves as Director of Regulatory Affairs with Clean Fuels Alliance America. Kate, thanks so much for your time today. Soy biodiesel has a lot of beneficial aspects to you. Can you highlight just some of those?
Yeah, I mean, using biodiesel, renewable diesel, sustainable aviation fuel has obviously a lower carbon intensity greenhouse gas emissions compared to our traditional petroleum products. And it's, really easy to use. It's available today. And these are, it's a clean energy solution that's already delivering the results. We see it for the farmers, the rural communities, and the U.S. economy there. Recently, we haven't had too many troubles in terms of accepting of growing the biodiesel market. So really looking forward this year now. But, in the past, it's a question of policy uncertainty, but, showing the economic impact and supporting our farmers is a really positive message that we can share. So I think things are looking in the right direction these days.
That's exciting. A lot of good things going on as soybean checkoff dollars being used to educate about the benefits of using soy biodiesel. Today's update brought to us by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff.
And thanks, Dusty. The Ohio Soybean Council invites you to learn more about biodiesel and how its cleaner, efficient fuel boosts engine life, adds value to soybeans, and drives real savings for farmers. Visit soyohio.org for more information. For the third consecutive week, average retail prices for 3 fertilizers led prices for 7 of the major fertilizers higher. For the first time in 12 weeks, the price of one fertilizer, anhydrous, was down slightly from the previous month. Average retail prices for 7 of the 8 major fertilizers were higher compared to last month. Prices of 3 of those were significantly higher, which DTN designates as anything 5% or more. Leading the way higher was, again, urea, up 9% from last month. Both UAN 28 and UAN 32 were 8% more expensive than last month. The price of 4 other fertilizers, DAP, MAP, potash, and 1034O, were up just slightly from last month. For the first time since the last week of February 2025, the price of anhydrous was down from the previous month. Now, researchers around the world are exploring innovative fertilizer technologies while minimizing environmental impacts, which could change crop nutrition, according to an article from Fertilizer Daily. However, research gaps exist and must be addressed before widespread adoption. Among the new technologies is nano fertilizers. These are made up of ultra-small particles designed to enhance nutrient uptake or control release and have shown positive effects in laboratory settings. However, researchers caution that the behavior of nanofertilizers in actual soil environments remains poorly understood, and much more research needed to be completed. These novel fertilizers have potential to improve nutrient use efficiency, but the science is still catching up with the marketplace claims, said Allison Thompson, lead author of a review of the recent study, and she told this to Fertilizer Daily. And oil futures jumped close to 2% overnight Tuesday night on renewed fears of a broader conflict in the Middle East following reports of a potential imminent Israel strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. A military escalation between the two nations would not only threaten Iranian oil supplies, but carries greater risk to the region's crude oil exports. The New York MEX trade for WTI June delivery was up 42 cents a barrel. Trade was near $62.45. And the ICE Brent for July delivery rose 40 cents a barrel to $65.78. The U.S. dollar index softened by 0.462 points, bringing it to 99.515. CNN on Tuesday reported that U.S. intelligence is seeing Israeli preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Aside from the threat to Iranian production and exports, the region being dragged into a wider conflict poses risks to supply stability in Middle Eastern oil more broadly. Back with more after this.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals. Your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
If your summer road trip leads you to Ohio's farm country, be sure to share the road with Ohio's farmers. Farm machinery moves slowly, makes wide turns, and needs extra space to avoid obstacles like mailboxes and guardrails. Let's all be mindful and make sure everyone gets home safe and sound this year. This message brought to you by the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. For marketing information for your soybeans to LDC, call 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finished higher yesterday, led by soybean futures with a double-digit move, particularly September forward. Corn, no slouch either, up about 6 to 7 cents. And the wheat markets coming off a big move on Tuesday, kind of settled in for another slight move higher. We're in the midst of a short covering rally, it seems, on the grain side of things. Now, these short covering rallies can go away about as quick as they come on. We did test some resistance yesterday in corn futures on the new crop side. Soybeans tested resistance on new crop as well. There is still a slightly higher upside target to look toward, but when we get into the narrower part of this range, or at least the upper part of the range on a short covering rally, you tend to start to run out of gas just a little bit. So need to watch the next couple of days. U.S. winter wheat harvest is going to be starting in earnest in about 3 weeks or so in Texas and southern Oklahoma. Amid the ideas that crops are looking pretty good in that area, especially farther north. Another 4 weeks out or so, we'll see the harvest underway in Kansas with pretty good yields expected right now if they get their disease pressures under control. U.S. ethanol weekly grind was at 305 million gallons of ethanol produced for the week. That was up 13 million gallons week on week. It was above last year as well, in line with what USDA is forecasting right now. We did come off of some of the seasonal downtime as maintenance had been completed at a handful of plants across the countryside. Ethanol stocks up 3% from last year. Gasoline usage fell 7%. The U.S. consumer struggling with inflation and debt and concerns about the economy overall. Well, the other story in the marketplace, of course, continues to be weather. Good rains coming across a large part of the Corn Belt, enough so that it's still going to probably delay field work in areas that need to do it. So those last 30% or so of acres that need to be planted on corn and beans probably for the next 4 or 5 days, and at least in this area, so we can get back in to working with some relief. But we are looking at a longer-term dry pattern from this holiday weekend through most of next week and even into the early part of the week following. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. We'll have the overnight figures after this. Think biodiesel is just another fuel? Think again. Biodiesel is Ohio innovation on the move. Clean, green, and built to keep diesel engines running strong. It's an engine booster, a soybean supporter, and an environmental champion all in one. Every gallon reduces emissions, strengthens Ohio farms, and powers your ride. Drive with purpose. Choose biodiesel. Learn how at soyohio.org.
Many drugs, like cocaine, methamphetamine, and non-prescription pills, are often cut with dangerous opioids like fentanyl. As a result, nearly 14 Ohioans die daily from unintentional overdoses. That's why it's important to carry naloxone, such as Narcan, a life-saving medication that blocks the effects of fentanyl and other opioids. Over the last 5 years, naloxone has saved over 83,000 lives. Help save lives and visit naloxone.ohio.gov to learn more and find free naloxone. Remember, if you see an overdose occurring, always call 911.
Today's market is brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. At yesterday's close, because it's fun, July corn up 6.5 at $4.61. December up 7 at $4.55.5. The July beans were up 9 3/4 at $10.62 3/4. November up 11 1/4 to $10.52 1/4. The July new crop wheat was up 3 1/4 at $5.49 1/4. September up 4 at $5.63 3/4. Now on the overnight at the open, unfortunately we're giving back a chunk of yesterday's gains. July corn down 1 1/4 at $4.59 3/4. December down 2 at $4.53.5. July beans, $10.52 3/4, down 10. November down 10.5 at $10.41 3/4. Now the July wheat's down 4 at $5.45 1/4. Carried out to September, you're down 4 at $5.59 3/4. If you carried it all the way to December, while being down 4 1/4, you're at $5.81 1/4. In livestock, June cattle up 97 at $214.15. August, $208.65 and up 80 cents. The October is $206.07, up 77. From there, we're lower. June hogs 99.52, down 50 cents. July down $1.02 at 102.52. In August down 65 cents at $102.35. August feeder cattle down $1.07 at $296.42. The September's down $1.15, trading at $295.05 at the close. In October, $292.80, down $1.25. Thanks for joining us. This is the Ohio AgNet.